Welcome to the Big Book Roundtable and the RICO 12 family of recovery resources targeted at people from all backgrounds, faiths, and places dealing with addictions of all varieties. RICO 12 is also a resource for the loved ones of addicts of all varieties. I'm Justin B. I'm a child of an all-powerful and perfectly loving God and am grateful to be the host of this and the steward of the RICO 12 family of recovery resources. Today, as all the time, as we do this Big Book Roundtable, I'm joined by David G. and Nikki M. I'm just grateful to have them with me around this virtual roundtable from all over North America. Let's take a minute and have each of them introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about what's going on in their lives. David, why don't you start us off today?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Miss Nikki, for being here today, being a part of my recovery. I'm David G. I'm an alcoholic addict of many sorts from Oklahoma here in the USA, and just been given the gift of recovery since August of 1994, coming up on 31 years, actually, in just a couple of weeks. So very, very grateful to share that with my brother and sister and all of you folks as well. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, David. And we're grateful to be able to share this roundtable with you. Nikki, how about you? Talk to us a little bit about what's going on in your life.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nikki M., and I'm a grateful member of many fellowships and a grateful member of RICO 12, and I'm in Toronto, Canada. It's a gorgeous day, and everyone keeps asking me, how are you? I get texts this morning, and I said, that's a big question. And I stopped answering with the word fine. But when you guys asked me today when we sat down, I said, you know what? I'm going to make a decision that today's the greatest day of my life. So that's where we are today. And I really need what we're reading today. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so excited because I need this podcast today way more than any person out there. Thank you for being here, guys.
And thank you for joining us, Nikki. Yes, this is what we're going to be covering today. And in the next reading are a couple of really powerful concepts to grasp as people that are striving to live in recovery. And so today we're going to start off on page 98 in the chapter Working with Others. At the bottom paragraph that starts with now the domestic problem. And we will read through the bottom of page 99 in the paragraph that ends, it will be apparent to both parties. After which we'll each, David and Nikki will each have the opportunity to share a little bit about what they pull from that, and we'll do some questions bouncing back and forth and wrap this up after that. So jump in, get your big book open, grab your pen, highlighter, and some paper to take notes so that you can put into action the things that your higher power puts on your heart as we read through this. So let's get reading. Now the domestic problem. There may be divorce, separation, or just strained relations. When your prospect has made such reparation as he can to his family and has thoroughly explained to them the new principles by which he is living, he should proceed to put those principles into action at home. That is, if he is still lucky enough to have a home. Though his family be at fault in many respects, he should not be concerned about that. He should concentrate on his own spiritual demonstration. Argument and fault finding are to be avoided like the plague. In many homes, this is a difficult thing to do, but it must be done if any results are to be expected. If persisted in for a few months, the effect on a man's family is sure to be great. The most incompatible people discover they have a basis upon which they can meet. Little by little, the family may see their own defects and admit them. These can then be discussed in an atmosphere of helpfulness and friendliness. After they have seen tangible results, the family will perhaps want to go along. These things will come to pass naturally and in good time, provided, however, the alcoholic continues to demonstrate that he can be sober, considerate, and helpful regardless of what anyone says or does. Of course, we all fall much below this standard many times. But we must try to repair the damage immediately, lest we pay the penalty by a spree. If there be divorce or separation, there should be no undue haste for the couple to get together. The man should be sure of his recovery. The wife should fully understand his new way of life. If their old relationship is to be resumed, it must be on a better basis, since the former did not work. This means a new attitude and spirit all around. Sometimes it is to the best interest of all concerned that a couple remain apart. Obviously, no rule can be laid down. Let the alcoholic continue his program day by day. When the time for living together has come, it will be apparent to both parties. All right, so we've got a full page there to cover. So let's jump into that. David, why don't you lead us off today and go through that with us and share with us your experience, strength, and hope?
Absolutely, Justin. And what a beautiful part of the book we're in. If you guys remember, we are on the second visit now to the prospect. We're talking about demonstrating the principles in all of our affairs. For some reason, I always, when I read this, I would put it in the first person, which was me. And that's a good thing. But at the same time, really, I'm demonstrating this to the guy that I'm trying to work with and to help him along. Now, if I haven't done some of this, obviously there's no need in me trying to tell him what to do if I'm not doing it, because then it becomes more of a talk than it does the walk. And I was blessed to do an in-person Big Book study this weekend in Odessa, Texas. And, this is always the Sunday morning chapter. We cover the entire chapter in a couple hours. And it's powerful. We're talking about the domestic problem, and everybody has those. I don't care who you are, unless you're completely perfect. And I only know of one that was like that. Then everybody goes through this. There may be divorce, separation, or just strained relations. And this isn't only talking about while I'm drinking. For me, this meant while I was sober. See, it says when your prospect, this isn't talking about me, it's talking about me showing him, has made such reparation as he can to the family. That's step 9. Has he thoroughly explained to them the new principles by which he is living. That's the 12 steps. Then he should proceed to put those into action at home. If you remember back on page 19 of this book, we really, really pounded that home when we were in that part of the book: home, occupations, and affairs. In fact, it says a much more important demonstration of the principles lie before us in our homes, occupations, and affairs. And here it is really going to bring that home, because that's where we need to be practicing this. It's easy for me to sit here and tell you all the wonderful things that I've done and all the wonderful things that I'm doing. But if I'm an ass to my wife, or I'm just negligent, or if I don't have a lot of time for her, or I've not done anything here, really. I just haven't. So he should not be concerned about that, though they be at fault in many respects, and they are. There are times. My mother right now is in a nursing home, and she made some comments the other day, and it really pissed me off, and I called her out on it. But I haven't talked to her a whole lot since. She's been trying to reach out a little bit, but I haven't answered the phone because I want to be in a good space whenever I talk to her. And so when I read this today, really, this is what the message is that God's saying to me. Though my mother be at fault in many respects, I shouldn't be too concerned about that. I should concentrate on my own spiritual demonstration. Can I demonstrate love, peace, kindness, without going into a lot of fault finding, argument? Argument and fault finding is what we did in step 4, if you remember. It's to be avoided like the plague, the book says. That's step 10. We know what a plague is. We know about COVID and what it did. It will kill your ass. And it says in many homes, this is a difficult thing to do, but it must. Not maybe that would be a pretty good idea, or if you want this or this, let's do it. No, it must be done if any results are to be expected. So if you're in a hurry to hurry up and run and apologize to the wife and or your boyfriend or whatever it may be, and you don't get results right away, most of us tend to think that this deal's not working. Maybe I've done something wrong. I need to do more. But my book says no, it persisted in for a few months, not a few days. Then the effect on the family is going to be sure to be great. And the most incompatible people will discover they have a basis upon which they can meet. Little by little, the family may see their own defects and admit them. That doesn't really matter, but this is what matters. Then they can be discussed in an atmosphere of helpfulness and friendliness. And unless I adopt that attitude, then I've still got a part. It's my part. It's your part. You said this. I said that. I wish I hadn't said this. I run with guilt and remorse then. But my book's saying, let's try not to do that. after we see tangible results, perhaps they'll want to go along, perhaps they won't. But these things will come to pass. That's a promise. They will come to pass. Not maybe, well, if you do some more work in your ninth step. No, these will come to pass naturally and in good time. Not my time, in good time. But there's a condition, provided that I continue to demonstrate that I can be sober, considerate, and helpful. And that's what the program of Alcoholics Anonymous looks like working inside of me today. I can be sober, I can be considerate, I can be helpful, regardless of what anyone says or does. I like what it says. No one's going to be perfect at this. We fall below that standard many times, but we better try to repair that damage, make amends quickly, as it says in step 10, or we're going to pay for the penalty by a spree. And that may not be drinking, that might not be drugs, but that might be depression, that might be sadness, that might be grief, that might be, oh my God, I wish I hadn't have done that. So, it's a beautiful thing. I think you read one more paragraph there, didn't you? It's so divorce or separation, no haste for the couple to get together. The man should be sure of his recovery. I can honestly tell you today, and for a long, long time, I have been sure of my recovery. This doesn't really apply to me. My wife does fully understand my new way of life. But I think it says sometimes, not always, but sometimes it's in the best interest of all concerned, children, moms, dads, brothers, sisters, whatever, that we remain apart. No rule can be laid down. And for damn sure not by my sponsor. I've had sponsors that try to tell me you're going to have to do this and you're going to have to do this. But my book tells me, obviously, no rule can be laid down here. So let's continue the program day by day. When time for living has come, it'll be apparent to both parties, not to my sponsor, not to the fellowship. It's it's about the vows that we took, and that's what it boils down to in the end. It's either a lesson or it's a blessing. Well, I'm going to get one of the two out of it, promise you. So thank you, Justin, for letting me share.
Thanks, David. And I love that phrase you said at the end. It's either a lesson or a blessing. All right, Nikki, why don't you take us through and share some of your experience, strength, and hope as it pertains to these paragraphs?
Perfect. I would love to. I need a new phone stand and all these high-tech things. David, thank you for going line by line. And, I love what David said. This is for the prospect. But as many of you know, I'm always reading it in the first person because it says this is a design for living. So I need my instruction book. And yes, everybody has domestic troubles. And I love what it says earlier, like if you're lucky enough to even have a family, many people I know don't, but even if you don't have a family, you have cats, you have neighbors. I always point that out to people because I sponsor a lot of people drowning in self-pity, me included. I've never had a husband. No, Nikki, you've had multiple people and you just haven't gone through all the way to the altar. So I have a lot of domestic trouble. And I love, David went through word by word. I'm going to go to the real things that I have highlighted and mucked up here, which is, new principles by which I'm living. We are here to live, and remind your prospect they are here to live too. We're not here to just stop doing things. That's not recovery. That's the white knuckling that everybody I see in the rooms now, I shouldn't say everybody, a lot of people are doing. We're here to live, not avoid. And, the principles into action at home. Well, of course, my line out, David says page 19, because that is drilled home. And I've talked about on this podcast. I put newcomers first many, many times, and that everybody did not work out for me. That it never works out for anybody I've seen. And there it is. If they're lucky enough to have a home, because I know many people who have destroyed, and as David said, sober. You're not 25 years sober to be living in government housing with no money, no relationships, a eating habit that's out of control, and picking up chips and celebrating with a cake. That's not what this book is about. I have to go home with that because I'm seeing that everywhere. So, This is what I need this morning because I went crazy with some text messages. Nikki should concentrate on her own spiritual demonstration. Now, my line out, because we see where religious people are right. I think it's Gandhi who said, be the change I want to be. Like, or how I'm misquoting Gandhi. I always misquote these people, but it's like, be the change you want to be, Nikki. And so if I want others to change, I better be, this is all about mirror reflection. Argument and fault finding are to be avoided like the plague. My line out says, go to God. See, I like to gossip. I like to slander. I like to vulgar talk. And I love to take people's inventory. So guess what's been happening to me all week, everybody? Everyone's been taking my inventory too. And in page 67, reread, it says the family may be at fault in many respects, but my book says I'm to disregard everybody. My book says I'm always at fault. I'm always to blame. So in many homes, this is a difficult thing to do. That's because we're always looking out, not looking in. Nikki, the power is deep down inside of you. New prospect, the power is deep down inside of you. Why are you looking out? You must look in. And then here, if persisted for a few months, again, line out, years. See, I was liquid pooping on the entire human race for 30 years. So this is not going to be course corrected in 3 months. I mean, this is deep. Everyone's like, they're supposed to forgive me. My son came over the other day and it was really painful. We got into a thing and he goes, you told me to move out at 15. You kicked me out, Mom. And I had to make a choice when he was 15 because my mother had moved in just after watching her husband commit suicide. And I had to make a choice one day when my son was literally like a typical 15-year-old doing crazy things. And I said, you can't stay here. Now, he moved down the street to his dad's. But I have to remember, Nikki, you threw out your son. This, and not just then, I threw him out for men for a decade. So he's not going to forgive me overnight. The most incompatible people discover they have a basis upon which they can meet. Why? Because the promise in the spiritual experience comes true. We've had a profound alteration in the way we see life. So when we mirror that out to others, they mirror it back to us. This is called Earth School. Not just, I don't know what you guys call it. I call it Earth School because I'm not having the best time some days. I'm failing some classes, but there's always an opportunity to do better. And I love this part too. Just go down here where it's like, because right in there I have like high vibe. These can be discussed in an atmosphere of helpfulness and friendliness. So when my son started doing that, he actually started to cry, which broke me open to watch my 21-year-old son cry. I had to calm down, pause, and I said, please, son, stay. And I had to turn the atmosphere into a high vibration of helpfulness and friendliness. I had to recall from memory, what does your book say, Nikki? It says, do not take his inventory, do not retaliate, pause and listen. And it ended so beautifully. I got a text message later that night that said, thank you, Mom, for the talk. Because here it is, the addict, the alcoholic, Nikki, my prospects, we continue to demonstrate that we can be sober, considerate, and helpful, regardless of my son going, you were awful and threw me out. And I said, but I bought you a dog. He said, what mom buys a kid a dog just because they say that? And I was like, oh no, here he goes. He knows everything, dealing with teenagers. Well, 21-year-olds. So I have to keep this attitude at all cost, but I must repair the damage. I must repair the damage. I was wrong. I can do better. I'm taking personal inventory every moment of every day. The wife, the family should understand my new way of living. My line out says, arm your family with the facts. Let them know I'm a woman of God. I don't do that anymore. I can't. My cousin invited me to a concert. I'm like, that's low vibration for me now. I love you. I can meet you at another time, but I can't do that anymore. This means a new attitude and spirit all around. I'm demonstrating these principles. I'm practicing them in all my affairs, encouraging my sponsees to do the same. Sometimes it is in the best interest of all concerned that people remain apart. God is the properly appointed authority for all relationships, not your sponsor. God is the PAA. and time. I just circled the word time. My line out says, time takes time. And for anybody listening, my Rastafari dad told me many years ago in a jungle, time is the common denominator for all problems. The end.
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you, David. I've got a question for each of you. David, why don't we start here with you? Why don't you talk just a little bit more about the patience that's required in seeing the results and change in others after, I've had the spiritual experience. I'm starting to make changes in my life, and yet maybe my family, for instance, is not reacting or responding as quickly as I would want them to. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Justin. You always have such good questions, and they're deep and they're personal, and I love that. I have a lot of patience today, and that is a miracle for a guy like me, because I was so impatient. I would throw fists in a minute, anyone, and I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago. My son, surprisingly, unexpectedly, had a little boy about 3 years ago. He just turned 3, actually. And I was still in the process of growing in this new experience. And so I had always been used to having my way as far as getting to see them when I want to see them, if I want to see them, having their mothers, you follow my lead on whatever it is. Well, this woman didn't do that. She was like, no, we're not going to do that. And so it turned into a big blow up, and I didn't get to see him for a long time. And so I finally got to the amends process of this. And by now I've had this change. I've started to become more patient, more tolerant, more loving. I've really, really begun to have an experience. And so it came up many times. I thought, well, I would really like to have this relationship with my grandson. And so I don't know, I just started putting out feelers here and there if this lady would talk to me. And of course she wouldn't. She didn't want to. She was very hurt by some of the things I had said and done and a few years earlier. And so my mother falls and breaks her hip, and she ends up in a nursing home, and we get her this digital picture frame. You may have seen it, where it just flashes several pictures of everybody. And that little boy's picture is on there, with my son and with me and with my wife and other people by himself. So one of the nursing assistants that work there, she comes by and she sees that, and she says, I think I know that boy. And she goes home and she tells the mother, hey, I've seen the little guy on the picture. And they're like, no, you probably were just tired, because, they work a lot of hours at those places. And so she comes back and she looks again and she says, no, that's him. That's him. And so it turns out that this nurse assistant and my little grandson's mother are best of friends. Now, watch how God's working here in my life. And so automatically my mind sees an opening. Hey, but more importantly was the demonstration that I had been very kind and patient with my mother. I had walked her twice a day. I'd rehabbed her. They work such long hours. I'd always bring them Monster energy drinks and this and that, just really good to the staff, because I know that work is hard. I know what it's like. And so anyway, she goes back and talks, and this lady becomes willing to let the little boy come see my mother and my wife, but still not me yet. And so I'm still being very patient with that situation. And there's a guy that I hired to do all my handiwork. He's a great kid. He got out of prison. He's turned his life around. He's just rough as hell. I love him to pieces. Well, come to find out, he started dating this woman that has my grandson. And all of a sudden, I'm like, hey, yeah. So I call him over. I was going to have him do some work anyway, but I get talking to him about the situation. Long story short is, through that series of events, God opened a door to where I could make amends to that woman. And now my grandson is back in my life. I think I sent Nikki some pictures of me and him or whatever it is. And so anyway, my son then gets involved. And this is where your question, and you had to go around that story. But he, all of a sudden, he's a little upset that he wasn't included in on some of this. And normally I would light him up like, it's your fault all this happened anyway. Yeah. But I was very patient. I was very kind. I was very tolerant. He got pretty belligerent a couple of times in that conversation. But I just blew it off. And he's like, what the hell is wrong with you? And I said, I don't see there's anything wrong with me. You're the one freaking out here. And he's like, exactly. That's what I'm talking about. Why are you so calm? Why are you so patient? Why are you acting this way? But as a result of these steps and the work that we do, especially in the healing process of step 9, if we're continuing in 10 and 11, then this becomes a natural part. It says it becomes a working part of the mind in step 11. So either it has or it hasn't. And you know what? It has. And so I talked with my son for an hour, man. He cried. I mean, he's a big boy. He's rough and tough. You don't cross him in too many ways, but he just cried his heart out. And so next day I said, hey, man, I'm coming home tomorrow. Why don't we just meet over in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where he's at? Let's go to dinner and let's talk this shit out. Let's hash it out once and for all. Let's get it on the table. And, you know, that's what we did. And today, as a result of me being patient, not being intolerant, unkind, jumping onto him, taking sides on one or the other, I was able to have a relationship today deeper with my son than I've ever had. Me and this woman have been able to heal our differences. And the greatest thing is that little guy is back in my life. And all of that happened as a result of exactly what we read here today. So this isn't bullshit. It is if we don't practice it and we run around and talk about it. But I could offer 100 experiences like that. But that's just one of the most recent. So thanks for that question, bud.
I love it. And thanks for that answer, David. I love the miracles that happen. And as Nikki mentioned earlier, you know, she had a line out, if persisted for a few months, cross that out and put years. Things happen. I mean, over years, that's just a miracle. Thank you for sharing that. Nikki, the question I have for you is the difference. Talk to us about the difference between living life and avoiding triggers, avoiding things that come up in life that may make us uncomfortable, and you compared that to white knuckling a little bit. So talk to us a little bit about the difference and the importance of living life versus living in white knuckled misery.
Well, thank you so much. And again, exactly what David said, you care, you take interest in what we're saying. And it's so kind. And I love you. And David, I love that story because I'm going to have to leave here and make an amends immediately when I get off here, because this is the difference between living and avoiding. I love that, you know, the experience, strength, and hope David just shared. And I've had the same kind of week with my son. And, you know, I was broken and I woke up this morning and I sent a text to, you know, baby daddy number 2, his dad and the stepmom. And I said some things. So number 1, if I want to live, how free do I want to be? I'm going to have to get off and say I was wrong for sending that text message. And what do they need for me to make it better? And then I need to go, because I've gone months, maybe even a year, and haven't sent a text message to these people where my son live. And I need to go even further and make a commitment to never send another text message. You know, it's a relapse. That's what I did. I said I was never going to do that again, and I'm in the same behavior. So what does that look like? I have to live. So I have to follow these instructions by doing the things I don't want to do. I can't avoid now, especially I'm on this podcast. I just heard David say what he said. I'm going to have to hang up after this Zoom call, after our recording, and send that message that I don't want to send. That's living. That's not avoiding. Go deeper. I'm going to have to do that dinner because I want to avoid my son now. I'm like, it's so great over there. You want to criticize me. You want to take my inventory. And when people take my inventory, I want them out of my life. That's not what the book says. It says love and tolerance is our code. It says our purpose is to serve. So this is very radical. It's a step 6 and 7 all day and night. Be willing to stop doing the things I want to do. And then it's step 7, Nikki, get humble and start doing the things. Did I say that right? Step 6, be willing to stop doing the things you want to do. And step 7, get humble and start doing the things that you have to do, right? Like, I hope I said that right, because I'm now thinking about the amends I have to make right now. So again, back to the difference between living is You have to do the things you don't want to do. You have to put on your big girl and big boy pants. You have to stand tall. You have to not retaliate. You have to turn all things over. When you don't want to give up that next addiction, when you know it's hurtful to your family and you're killing yourself slowly, you're avoiding doing the right thing when you know you must do the next right thing, page 420, and leave the results up to God. And however that turns out, that's God's will for you in that moment. This is the most radical life course I will ever take, Justin. I'm all scared, but I know I can go and send that text and course correct my anger into love. Thank you, David and Justin.
Thank you. I love watching these miracles happen basically in real time as we do this as we have these conversations. I have takeaways from this that just that I've already put one of them on my wall of quotes here. It's either a lesson or a blessing, and that's a good takeaway I've got from this. And also the question Nikki asked is another takeaway I have. How free do I want to be? What am I willing to do in order to obtain that freedom? And doing the things I don't want to do is often the path to freedom. What's a takeaway that you have from our conversation today, Nikki? Yeah, we'll start with Nikki on that.
A takeaway? Well, I need that accent. That lesson is a blessing. I need that Oklahoma accent. That's what my takeaway is. But really, bottom line is do the things that you don't want to do. Please, everybody, start doing the things that you don't want to do. Basically, face your fears.
Thank you, Nikki. How about you, David? What's a takeaway for you?
I think it would be healing. And I just really want to hold Nikki up in my prayers today. If it gets real, real bad, I'll smoke to the east and it'll definitely free her. We know that for a fact, don't we, Nikki? Let's look at page 133 real quick. Looks like maybe where it says now about health. Body badly burned by alcohol often does not recover overnight. Let's kind of take that sentence out and focus on the next one. Nor do twisted thinking and depression vanished in a twinkling. We are convinced, there should be a question mark there, are you or are you not, that a spiritual mode of living is the most powerful health restored. We who have recovered from serious thinking are miracles of mental health. We have seen remarkable transformation in our minds, in our bodies. Hardly one of our crowd shows any mark of dissipation. So either you believe that or you don't. And if you don't, then there's no sense in acting like you do. It's okay. But I do. I know it for the fact. So my takeaway would be healing. Thank you.
Beautiful. This has been an amazing recording. Thank you, David and Nikki, for spending time around this roundtable. To you out there in the listening audience, if there was a takeaway that you have, put it down on paper, put it into action, and see what the results are. See what miracles follow. I know that as I practice these principles in all my affairs, amazing things follow. And I see it in the lives of others. So come join with us in the fellowship of the Spirit and come trudge this adventurous and amazing road of happy destiny with us. Work it. You are worth it.